The late, great Nelson Mandela said, "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." That is exactly what Congressman John Lewis has done throughout his life, and we are so very fortunate to have him with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming my colleague, Congressman John Lewis.
Suzanne, my sister, my colleague, my friend, thank you for those kind words of introduction. You didn't have to do it, but you did it. I appreciate it. Rabbi, thank you. To all of the religious leaders, of the rabbis, ministers, Mr. President, to all of the honorable elected and appointed officials, to each and every one of you, thank you for being here. I feel like we can go home. Some of you maybe saw me sort of dapping my eyes from time to time. Thank you. Everybody, thank you. Choir, thank you for the music. I've said on occasion, without music, the civil rights movement would have been like a bird without wings. Thank you. You know, we used to sing, "Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell, O Pharaoh, to let my people go." We understand our ancestors, the slaves. Tonight, I must tell you, I feel more than lucky. I feel very blessed to be here in this temple. It is a holy place. There is a spirit here. Martin Luther King Jr. would be so proud of you tonight to see you. His spirit is here. Now, some of you have heard me say, I didn't grow up in a big city like Portland. A big city like Washington or New York or Detroit or Atlanta. I grew up on a farm in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer. But back in 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4, how many of you remember when you were 4? Well, what happened to the rest of us? My father bought 110 acres of land for $300. We moved from that plantation. And on this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, and a lot of chickens. We'll talk about the chickens. Some of you heard me tell the story. It was my responsibility to care for the chickens. And I fell in love with raising chickens like no one else could raise chicken. I became very good at it. I know some of you know something about Popeyes, or Kentucky Fried, Bojangles. But you really don't know anything about raising chicken. That's another story. We worked very hard in the field, from sun up to sundown, and I would say to my mother, "This is hard work. It's about to kill me." And my mother would say, "Boy, hard work never killed anybody. Just do your work." But those chickens taught me something. Let me tell you what I had to do as a young boy. I had to take the fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, and wait for 3 long weeks for the little chicks to hatch. Some of you may be saying, now, John Lewis, why do you mark those fresh eggs with a pencil before you place them under the setting hen? Well, from time to time, another hen would get on that same nest, and there would be some more eggs. And you had to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. Do you follow me? You don't follow me. It's okay. It's all right. So when these little chicks would hatch, I would take these little chicks and put them in a box with a lantern, raise them on their own. I'd take the little chicks and give them to another hen. Get some more fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, encourage the setting hen to stay in the nest for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling and cheating these setting hens. And when I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do. It was not the most loving thing to do. It was not the most nonviolent thing to do. I was never quite able to save $18.98 to order the most inexpensive incubator, a hatchet from the Susan Robot store, so I just kept on cheating on the setting hen. But as a little boy, Rabbi, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard. And my brothers and sisters and cousins were lying around and outside of the chicken yard, but they helped make up the audience and the congregation along with the chickens. And I would start speaking or preaching, and I noticed some of these chickens would bow their heads. Some of these chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to during the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of our colleagues listen to us today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, some of those chickens were just a little more productive. At least they produced eggs. Growing up there outside of Troy, Alabama, when we would visit Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, I saw those signs that said white men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. I asked my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents why, and they would say, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble. But one day in 1955, 15 years old in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on our radio, and the words, the leadership of Dr. King inspired me to find a way to get in the way to get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. I admired what Dr. King was doing. Seemed like he was speaking directly to me when I heard his voice on the radio. Looked like he was saying, John Robert Lewis, you too can do something. So in 1956, at the age of 16, with some of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we went down to the public library in the little town of Troy, Alabama, trying to get a library card, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only and not for colors. I never went back to the Pike County Public Library until July 5th, 1998, for a book signing of my book. And hundreds of blacks and white citizens showed up. Had a wonderful time. Signed a lot of books. End of the program, they gave me a library card. Martin Luther King Jr., this man that I marched with, this man that I worked with, this man that I went to jail with, this man, my inspiration, my leader, my hero, my friend, my big brother, liberated not just a people, but he freed and liberated a nation. It was Martin Luther King Jr. who said on one occasion, we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish as fools. You know, if it hadn't been for Martin Luther King Jr., I don't know what would have happened to our nation. Preaching and teaching the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. Many of us as students, that were young people here in the state, here in the city of Portland, that were so moved by what Dr. King was saying and doing. They boarded buses and came on the Freedom Ride. They worked in Mississippi during the summer of 1964. They came to Selma in 1965. Not only students, but rabbis and priests and nuns and ministers, teachers, college professors were moved to act, to stand up, to speak out. The power of love. The power of forgiveness. To be reconciled, to become one, to create a sense of community. Dr. King taught us how to sit in, how to stand up, how to speak up, how to speak out, and how to march. He said on one occasion, there's not anything more powerful than the marching feet of a determined people. And maybe, my colleague, maybe we have to march again. Rabbi, I agree with you. I think there's some meanness in our society. I don't like to talk about our fellow human beings, but I think sometime in America we've come to that point where some of us go to bed mean, we dream mean, we get up mean, and we say, who can I hurt today? Who can I put down today? Let me just give you one or two examples. In 1961, I was 21 years old, the same year that President Barack Obama was born. Back in 1961, black people and white people couldn't leave Washington, D.C. together, riding on a Greyhound bus or Trailway bus and cross into Virginia, to travel through North Carolina, South Carolina, through Georgia, Alabama, through Mississippi on our way to New Orleans. We were beaten. We were arrested. We were jailed. Some of us was left bloody and unconscious at the Greyhound bus station in Montgomery. But before we made it to Alabama, before we made it to Georgia, to South Carolina or North Carolina, my seatmate, a young white gentleman, two of us arrived in a little town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, only a few miles from Charlotte, North Carolina. We started through the door of a waiting room saying white waiting. We were attacked and beaten and left lying in a pool of blood. The local officials came and wanted to know whether we wanted to press charges. We said no. This was May 9th, 1961. In February '09, less than a month after President Obama was inaugurated, one of the guys that beat me and my seatmate, left us lying there, came to my office in Washington with his son and said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you. I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? I said yes. His son started crying, he started crying. They hugged me, I hugged him back, and I started crying. And I saw the gentleman 4 other times. We call each other brothers. It says something about the power of honor and suffering, redemptive suffering. The power of love, the power of nonviolence. Give you one more example. On the Freedom Rides, later in May of 1961, an angry mob met us in Montgomery. There were black and white young people and people not so young at the Greyhound bus station. We was beaten. The local police official withdrew and let an angry mob beat us. Several of us were hurt, hospitalized. But last year, when I went back to Montgomery with a large delegation from the Congress, some of the leadership of the Congress, black, white, Latinos, Asian Americans, the local police chief met us at the same church where I met Dr. King, Reverend Abernathy, in 1958. The chief came on behalf of the mayor to speak. This chief was not even born 45 or 50 years ago. He was only about 40 years old. He said, Mr. Lewis, when you came here in 1961, we were not kind to you. Our police department withdrew and allowed an angry mob to beat you. But we have a different police department today. Before anyone can become a member of this department, they must study the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. They must study what happened here in Montgomery. They must know something about Rosa Parks, about Martin Luther King Jr. They must know something about what happened in Selma and Birmingham. He went on to say, we're better today. He said, I want to show my respect for you and the movement. He was wearing his badge, saying the chief of police, Montgomery, Alabama. He said, I'm going to take my badge off, and I want to present it to you. And I said, Chief, you can't do that. You're the chief of police. You need your badge. He said, Congressman, I can get another one. We have witnessed, because of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what I call a nonviolent revolution. A revolution of values, a revolution of ideas. If we accept the teaching of Martin Luther King Jr., live it. Be kind to each other. Respect each other and respect the dignity and the worth of every human being. Then what we do here in America, on this little piece of real estate, maybe it can serve as a model for the rest of the world. Try it. Let us give peace a chance. Let's do what we can to build the beloved community, where we can lay down the burden of race, the burden of hate. For in the final analysis, we are one people, we are one family, we are one house. We all live in the same house. Some of you have heard me tell this story, and I'll tell this story and I'll be finished. When I was growing up outside of Troy, Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, I had an aunt by the name of Seneva. And my Aunt Seneva lived in what we call a shotgun house. I know here in Portland, you don't even know what I'm talking about. You've never seen a shotgun house. She didn't have a green manicured lawn. Had a simple, plain dirt yard. Sometime at night, you can look up through the holes in the ceiling and count the stars. When it rains, we got a pail, a bucket, or tub, and catch the rainwater. From time to time, she would walk out into the woods and cut branches from a dogwood tree and tie these branches together and make a broom. And she called that broom the brush broom. And she would sweep this dirt yard very clean, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, but especially on a Friday or Saturday, because she wanted that dirt yard to look good during the weekend. For those of you who really may not know what a shotgun house is, in the nonviolent sense, it's an old house, one way in, one way out, where you can bounce a basketball through the front door and it will go straight out the back door. My Aunt Seneva lived in a shotgun house. But one Saturday afternoon, a group of my brothers and sisters and a few of my first cousins were out playing in my unseen evil dead yard, and an unbelievable storm came up. The wind started blowing, the thunder started rolling, the lightning started flashing, and the rain started beating on the tin roof of this old shrunken house. My aunt became terrified. She started crying. She thought this old house was going to blow away. She got all of us little children together and told us to hold hands. And when one corner of this old house appeared to be lifting from its foundation, she had us to walk to that side to try to hold the house down with our little bodies. When the other side appeared to be lifting, she had us to walk to that side. We were little children walking with the wind, but we never left the house. I said to you tonight, as we remember Martin Luther King Jr., the wind may blow, the thunder may roll, the lightning may flash, and the rain may beat on our old house. Call it the house of Portland. Call it the house of Atlanta. Call it the house of America. Call it the house of Israel. Call it the house of Europe. Call it the house of Africa. Call it the house of the Middle East. We all live in the same house. We must do what we can, not only to hold the American house together, but to hold the human house together, the world house together. So I said to you tonight, don't give up. Don't give in. Don't become bitter. Don't become hostile. You can't be silent. You have to move your feet. You have to speak up and find a way to get in the way and make a way out of no way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be very pleased if he could just look out and see this audience. He loved music, and I tell you, you all did all right tonight. You did well. So thank you so much. I am very hopeful, very optimistic about the future. I got arrested 40 times during the 60s, and since I've been in Congress, I've been arrested another 5 times. And if it takes getting arrested again, I would be there to we got to do something. We got to fix it. We got to fix it. It doesn't make sense, and my colleague would agree, it doesn't make sense that we have more than 12 million people living in the shadow. We got to have comprehensive immigration reform. There's no such thing on God's little planet as illegal human beings. So it doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. It doesn't matter whether we're Protestant, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, straight or gay. We're brothers and sisters. As African American and as members of the Jewish community and others, we bled together. This June 21st, 50 years ago, 3 young men that I knew, that I met, knew one more than I knew the other 2. Andy Goodman, Mickey Schwerner, and James Shaney. These 3 young men, Jewish and African American. I still can't get over this. Went out to investigate the burning of an African American church to be used for voter registration workshop. These 3 young men stopped by the sheriff, detained, taken to jail, later turned over to the Klan, where they were beaten, shot, and killed. It happened in America. We cannot forget that. My colleague, we got to do something to honor these three young men. They must be looked upon as the fathers of modern America. They gave their blood, they gave their lives in Mississippi for everybody to have the right to participate, the right to vote. I've said in the past, the vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful, non-violent instrument or tool that we have in a democratic society, and it must not be denied any people, anyone. So in the name of Martin Luther King Jr., this wonderful man, this beloved brother, the rabbi said he was a prophet, and I believe he was a modern day prophet. Go out and do good. Go out and carry the message of love and peace. We can do it. I don't know, with the technology that we have today, the social media, we didn't have that during the 60s. I hadn't heard of the internet. We didn't have a fax machine. We had one of those, what you call this, mimeograph that you turn around and around. We can do a lot of good. Just come together and let's do it. It must start with the people. Don't wait on Washington. Just do it. Do what is right. Do what is fair. Find a way to get in the way. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, in the name of Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you very much.